What's up, everybody? Stephen A. Smith, ESPN in the house. You know, I travel all over the country. I have an absolutely positively wonderful time covering NBA, covering NFL, covering Major League Baseball. Hell, if you'd be surprised, I might decide to talk about hockey one day. Anything's possible. But I tell you this much. I tell you how you can enjoy yourself. Make sure you watch my man Carl Pratt on Cap Sports. You see it right here. Make sure you check my man out. Support him. Good dude. Take it easy. Peace.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Video Sports page. Tonight, it's edition number 1160 for your viewing pleasure. I'm your host, Carl Pratt, along with Rich Goulart. Now, during this week's edition of our program, we're going to talk about some very successful teams in our viewing area. Some are very familiar to you, some are new on the scene, but certainly enjoying success nonetheless. This week on our program, we'll talk about Plymouth North baseball, which is in a very familiar setting. The Silver Lake baseball program, back at it once again. The Silver Lake girls softball team. Wait till I tell you their stats, runs for and runs against. The Plymouth North boys tennis program on the threshold of a championship. Meanwhile, the Silver Lake boys tennis team is qualified for postseason play. The Carver girls softball team is on quite a run these days under the direction of Chuck Green. And before we close this week's edition of our program, we're going to talk about a young lady from Sacred Heart who has pitched her second no-hitter of the spring of 2013. And during this week's edition of our program, we want to begin by talking about that tennis team from Plymouth North. They're under the direction of Andy Dugan. And you know what? You have to back up the clock to 1980, the last time a Plymouth Carver, or Plymouth North boys tennis team won a championship. So if we go back to 1980, it was Plymouth Carver tennis. Well, Andy Dugan has some boys that are really doing some good things these days. They have 2 more league matches remaining, one on Friday and another one next week. And destiny is in their own hands. If they can come up with the 2 victories, they will be Atlantic Coast League champions. And you know, earlier this week, conditions were ideal as this team went through a workout. They had a practice session on the campus of Plymouth North, and Coach Andy Dugan and I had this conversation. Okay, it's an opportunity to get some insight now on the successful season by the Plymouth North tennis team. On the boys' side, here to shed some light on the success is their head coach, Andy Dugan. Andy, we appreciate you breaking away from the practice. You got to be pleased.
Absolutely. I'm very pleased. We had high expectations going into this season, and it wasn't easy. Our number 1 player was academically ineligible, number 1 player from last season. So obviously guys had to step up. We had to make some changes, and we've clearly done that, and we're off to a great start.
Well, let's talk about it. Not only a great start, just a handful of league games left. Just 2 more matches remain. One on Friday against Sandwich, one next week against Plymouth South. Those are big matches for your team.
Absolutely. We've never had this opportunity before at this point in the season, so obviously they're important. We've handled those 2 teams in the past, the first time that we saw them. But they're league matches. It's the second time through, and anything can happen, so we have to be ready.
Let's talk about it. You're going neck and neck with a very good Falmouth program, which year after year is good in tennis. You lost most recently 3-2 against them.
Yeah, that was a tough one for me as a coach. It was a tough one for the kids because we had a chance to put the league away during that match. It was very close. It came down to a 3rd set in second doubles, the last match on the court. So it was a tough pill to swallow, but I think that we're back staying positive right now.
Well, let's talk about it. You talked about the high expectations, different people stepping up. Talk about quickly your number 1 singles player now.
Number 1 this season has been Matt Doherty. He had to step into that role, but he's always wanted it since he was a freshman. He's a competitive kid. He's put a lot of work in the offseason. And I think he's stepped up as well as he could, and we expect more from him in the future.
And one of the problems for poor Matt when he steps into that role, anytime you're number 1, you face the other team's best.
That's right. We play a really competitive schedule with a lot of talent at the number 1 position. So he's playing some of the best kids in the state, some of the best kids in the country. So I think in hindsight, when he looks back on this experience, even though he's lost a lot of matches, it'll be really good for him mentally and for his tennis.
And just as far as Matt's concerned, I know he puts in a lot of time away from high school tennis, really gets involved in the sport. You got to like that.
Absolutely. He's in the gym all the time. When he's not in the gym training, he's with his coach. working in the off season. He's playing matches. He's in love with the sport, and he's in love with fitness. And I love that.
Yeah, there you go. Just quickly, give me a few other names because you don't get the type of victories you've had to this point. What is it, 14?
We are 12-3.
Okay, 12-3. You don't get those type of victories without other kids stepping up.
No, absolutely. Our 3 senior captains are all playing doubles for us, and we have excellent doubles records. I've told coaches over and over that's the strength of our team. Jack Moore is a senior, and he's done excellent at second singles. And third singles, which really helped us put this whole thing together, was a freshman, Dan Taco. And if he wasn't able to step up and play third singles, we wouldn't have such strong doubles.
Exactly. All right, quickly, tell me those 2 doubles teams.
First doubles is Noah Bailey and Mike Withington, and second doubles is Jack Murphy and Sean Kolb, who's a sophomore.
All right, we're over here at the practice. It's actually on a Tuesday afternoon. We're doing this interview. Team is scheduled to be in action on Wednesday. We'll give you an update there as the Eagles take on Cape Cod Academy. Head coach Andy Dugan joining us on the program. So quickly, I got to ask you, like I ask every other coach, great facilities here at the brand new Plymouth North High School. How cool is it for you, if that's the proper term to use, to step out of the classroom and the kids go a few short feet and they're on a home turf?
It does make it easier. We enjoyed our time at the Eel River Beach Club down the street, but it is nice to be back on campus. I feel like we really have a home field advantage now that we didn't necessarily have before. So it's convenient, it's nice, and it's good for the kids, good for the program.
Well, let me ask you, I don't know if I'll pick it up with the camera after and show the people at home, but it looks like you're sheltered by trees around you, and obviously the building behind our camera. Is there literally no wind during your matches?
Well, it's Plymouth, so there's always some wind. But we were used to playing right on the water, right on the beach. The last couple of years, it was severely windy down there, so it feels as though there's no wind here.
There you go. All right, here's the thing. There's a lot of wind in the sail for the Plymouth North tennis team. Andy Dugan joining us, been coaching this program now in his 5th or 6th season. Nonetheless, we're looking for that first championship. Don't want to jinx you, but you have to go way, way back since the last time the boys could lay claim to that.
Yeah, it was 1980. It was actually 2 years before I was born. So it's a historical thing. It's a great opportunity, and that was my goal when I took this position, so I'm really thrilled about it.
Nice to be within a whisker. Coach, we certainly appreciate your time breaking away from the kids.
Anytime. Thank you.
You bet. All right, head coach Andy Dugan joining us this week on the Video Sports page. We'll continue with more, so stay with us. Well, we certainly appreciate the time of Coach Dugan and wish his Eagles good luck in the days ahead. All right, let's put some focus on high school softball right now. More specifically, let's talk about Sacred Heart and their young pitcher, Julia Pamela. She pitched a no-hitter this week against Westport. Along the way, she struck out 12. You say, well, that's great for Julia. It was her second no-hitter this spring. All right, Sacred Heart is now 9-5 on the season. They banged out 14 hits in that victory. All right, if you want to talk about success, let's talk about the Silver Lake girls softball program under the direction of Mike Brennan. This team scoring all sorts of runs. Their most latest effort came on Tuesday at home against Pembroke. 14-0 was the final count, and that's just part of the story. Well, Mike Brennan's now in his 25th season, and following his team's lopsided victory, he and I had this conversation as we talked about this very successful season for Silver Lake. Okay, let's continue with this week's edition of our program. Week after week since spring sports began, we've been bragging, we've been boasting, we've been talking about the Silver Lake girls softball team, which is winning not by scores of 5-1 and 4-3, but dominating their opponent. And that was certainly the case here on a Tuesday afternoon at home. A 14-0 victory against Pembroke. Here to shed some light on his outstanding team this season, which sports a record of 15-1. Veteran coach Mike Brennan, boy, you've got to be pleased.
Very pleased. This is a very talented team this year. Yeah.
Let's talk if we can. It's a talented team, but it's a young team. You only sport 3 seniors on your roster.
Yeah, we are very young. 3 seniors, like you said, my catcher, my center fielder, and my right fielder. Freshman pitcher. We're going to be good for a long years, a lot of years.
Let's talk if we can. You got a freshman pitcher, but the girl that was your leading pitcher from a year ago, the freshman takes her spot and pushes her over to first base.
I'll tell you, Jessie, who pitched for me last year, Jessie Smith, she's pitched 4 games this year. She's 4-0. But I'll tell you, she went to first base, and she's probably the best first baseman I've had in the last 20 years. She's hitting the ball well, great defensive player. We're very, very pleased with her at first.
And it's obviously very important. You know this, coaching for so many years. Don't bank on just one person at one position. Something happens to the young freshman pitcher. You need a backup. You're going into the tournament.
You know, the way I look at it, we have two number ones. You know, we really do. I mean, Jessie won 13 games for me last year, and we took us to the semifinals of the sectionals. And you know what? Yeah, she's the so-called backup this year, but wouldn't hesitate to put her in there.
Well, they say if you stick around long enough, you'll see just about everything. This guy's been coaching for what, 25 years, and you've seen just about everything, including this year's team, which could be your best.
It is the most talented team that I've had. You know, we've made tournament. Making it this year makes it 24 years in a row that we've made tournament. But overall, 1 through 15 players, we are very talented. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about one of those 15 players, your starting pitcher who's only a freshman. She gets to pitch to her older sister who's the catcher, and boy, that's a pretty good combination to have.
It's a great combination, and Alex, the senior catcher, who's my number 3 hitter and the captain of the team. They've been playing together for so long. You know, I let them call their own game, and if Maddie doesn't make her a right pitch, Alex will let her know. And so far, it's worked out great.
Well, as you know, in sports, especially with a pitcher and catcher, communication is so important. These are girls that not only do it in practice and during games, they take it home with them.
They take it home with them, absolutely. Yeah. It's fun to watch the two of them. And she, like I said, she's a freshman. She's got great strikeout to walk ratio. Today's win makes her 11-1. She struck out somewhere around 172 and walked, I think, 10. With her pitching, if we get a couple of runs, I pretty guarantee that we're going to win a ball game.
You want to talk about ratio? You heard Coach use that word. How about this ratio? So far on the season, following this 14-0 victory by Silver Lake over, if you want to call it a rival, Pembroke, Silver Lake on the season in 16 softball games has scored 182 runs and allowed 6, and 2 of those 6 came in one game. 2
of them came against Duxbury in the 4th game of the year that we lost, and then we came back last week and played Duxbury here and beat them 12-0. So, we're playing very well. I'm very pleased.
All right, we talk about all the runs. We talk about the good pitching. We talk about the least amount of runs you're giving up. But that means not only is the girl striking them out, but you got to have good defense and kids making plays behind her.
We do. You know, the good thing about Maddie when she's pitching, my outfielders will tell you it gets pretty boring out there because anything that is hit to the outfield is usually hit to right or right center. So my poor left fielder, I don't think has made a play all year with Maddie pitching. But we're very good defensively. On that side with Jessie Smith at first and Jenny Reardon, the sophomore, at second base. Great defensive infield. Emily Colton at short. She made a great play today. Kept the perfect game in order for Maddie. And Abby Alexiadis at third. So very solid all the way through. And my outfield is maybe the best outfield I've had in years.
Well, this is what I was going to say. It's got to be important for you as a coach to keep the kids and tell them stay on your toes. And sometimes we are human beings. Your pitcher's pitching so good she can lull her defense to sleep.
She does, and Vicki Smith mentioned that last week to one of the other reporters. She said it gets pretty boring out there at times, because not much goes on,
Well, I mean, it is realistic. I mean, and it's tough as a coach. You want the kids to be on their toes, but realistically, we're all humans, and we sit there and say, okay, she's probably going to strike this one out, and you say, be ready. But how many times can you get on the balls of your feet and say, be ready? All right, let's talk about it. Just a handful of softball games remaining in the season. What do you hope to accomplish? With the victory, by the way, today against Pembroke, Silver Lake has secured at least a co-championship in the Patriot League, something that makes you happy. You do take on Hingham. You win there, then obviously it's yours.
Right, exactly. And that'll be, if we win on Thursday, that'll be 4 years in a row that we've won the Patriot League and 6 out of the last 7. So, we have quite a tradition going on here. And, we want to go. We made it to the semifinals last year of the sectionals. And we want to take it a step further.
And something you've learned in the past with all the good teams you've had, if you're not ready in that first round of the tournament, anything can happen. And even though you get 15, 16, 13, 12 wins during the regular season, that fine season, outstanding regular season can be wiped out in one tournament game.
That's happened to us before. You're right. It's a whole new season come playoffs, as you know. And, everybody starts back at zero again. you got to be ready.
All right, here's the situation. Be ready. I say this year after year and spend some time. We've been doing this since 1989. This guy's been around for 25 years. I always ask you, you're coming back. And I would have to say, you might say this will be your last year, but if I was coaching and knew what I had coming back, I might say that decision's on hold.
That decision's on hold. Exactly right.
All right,
Yeah.
there you go. Well, you don't like to put words in people's mouths, but I guess we're thinking the same. Listen, we appreciate your time as always. We've been following your team when we're not out here week after week, and keep it rolling.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, head coach Mike Brennan joining us this week on the Video Sports Page. We'll continue with more, so stay with us. All right, as we move along with this week's edition of our program, edition number 1160, let's talk about the Carver girls softball team, which is on quite a roll. The Crusaders knocked off Rockland this week, 6-4 in 10 innings. The clutch base hit was Christina Barrows, hitting a 2-run home run in the 10th inning, lifting the Crusaders to their 10th win in their last 11 starts. 10-4 overall, 7-4 in South Shore League action. And earlier before that, Carver came up with a victory against Hull. Score there was 12-0. And in that game, Samantha Rudnick was the winning pitcher. She also had a clutch base hit. Rudnick struck out 9 in that victory against Hull. She's only a sophomore for Coach Chuck Green. Well, how about the Plymouth North baseball team? Year after year, they either win a league championship or win a state championship, but certainly make their mark, and they're certainly a benchmark for many area schools to follow. This was a year, certainly has to be very gratifying, and it's far from over for head coach Dwayne Follett. Graduated a lot of people from last year's team that made it to the state championship game. All this year's team has done, following a victory on Wednesday against Plymouth South 5-2, is pick up its 12th win against 4 losses in the league, 9-2. That means at least a co-championship. Plymouth North has one more league game remaining next Tuesday at Seaver Field starting at 4 o'clock. And if the Eagles win there against Marshfield, they will be league champs all to themselves. All right, with that victory against Plymouth South 5-2, they now have shared or picked up their 11th league championship under the direction of Dwayne Follett. But let me tell you one other very impressive number. This is Follett's 19th season directing the Eagles baseball program, and that victory not only was sweet by defeating Plymouth South, it was sweet because it was Follett's 300th career victory, his 300th game. All right? All right, Plymouth North defeating Plymouth South 5-2. The winning pitcher was Brian Christian. First time he faced South earlier this year, Christian struck out 12. This time he did it one better, striking out 13 Panthers along the way. Also had a clutch base hit himself. But more importantly than those 13 strikeouts was the fact he kept his walks down. He walked just 2 Plymouth South batters, and that's key to be right around the plate with the tournament right around the corner. All right, here's your situation for Plymouth North. They will be in action on Thursday against Auburn. This is a team they faced in the state finals a couple of years in a row, and now those two schools have hooked up for non-league baseball. All right, they'll take on Auburn on Thursday. On Friday over at Duxbury, a non-league game will take place under the lights at 6:30 on Friday night at Duxbury. That'll be senior night. Marshfield next Tuesday at home, and next Thursday they'll take on a very good Silver Lake team. Silver Lake, last year's Patriot League champions, first championship for Silver Lake in 51 years, maybe 61 if my numbers come to me. But how about that Silver Lake baseball team? They had a victory 5-1 against Pembroke on Tuesday. And with that victory, Silver Lake gained at least a share of the Patriot League championship. In that particular game, freshman Anthony Vedetto got his first victory as a pitcher for the Silver Lake varsity baseball team. Silver Lake with the win, 15-2, 11-1 in Patriot League action. Now, as I mentioned, Silver Lake gets the victory, gaining at least a co-championship in the Patriot League. That's because their game ended before Hingham's game ended. We find out after Silver Lake's victory that Hingham ended up losing its matchup, so Silver Lake has the league championship all to themselves. And we didn't know that when I interviewed Coach Kenny Tachi, who was all smiles and certainly very proud of his team's effort. Let's roll the interview I had with Lakers coach Kenny Tocci. Well, we've mentioned so many times on our program when we bring up the subject of Silver Lake baseball, first championship since 1961, a year ago. And now on a Tuesday afternoon here at Pembroke, they gain at least a co-championship, and takes so long to get one, then you get a second one in a hurry.
Well, it's kind of like old hat here, you know. It'll never get old, though. It feels good. It's a great league. It's a very tough league, and if you don't bring your A game every game, as I said to you, the preseason. And, you know, Pembroke's our rival. They fought us tooth and nail, but we pulled it out.
And let's talk, if we can, with the great success you've had this year. You knew what you had coming back. You and I talked way back a month and a half ago when it was rainy and damp and we went inside the gymnasium. That seems like a long time ago.
It does, but when you think about it, it's really flown by. I mean, we're already 17 games into the season. We've got 4 games left, and in a blink of an eye, it really goes by fast. And, you know, as you do it more, you start to savor each game. And, you know, you sit back and kind of realize, like you said, 51 years, it took a while before we got a league championship. And all of a sudden, you know, we've got another one. And, you know, you tip your hat to the kids. They really bought in. And especially with how we turned over so many kids this year. It's a completely different team. Only 2 or 3 returning players from last year's team. So we got a lot of young guys. We got 2 freshmen regularly playing. We've got 2 sophomores. And, you know, it's a great team. You're
getting great all-around play from Tucker Bouchard. You're not surprised there. Mike London, a senior pitcher for you. How about a 0.00 ERA?
Oh, that's impressive. And Tucker's is right there at 0.89. So we don't give up many runs. And the way that these guys, you know, play behind him defensively, they really help out, especially when Tucker pitches. Tucker pitches more to contact. Mike's more of a strikeout guy. So you don't have to have a great defense behind him. But, you know, when Tucker pitches, he's more of a contact guy, and it really pays off. And you know, I can't say enough about how those 2 really, really step it up each and every time, because, you know, Mike is drawn to the tough, you know, matchups. He beat Plymouth North, he beat Hingham. You know, that keeps those, that puts that 0.00 ERA in check. It's not like he's pitching against the Little Sisters of the Poor.
No, but when you see Mike go out there and pitch, have you seen with each trip to the mound, he's more and more confident as he goes out there to take his first pitch?
No, not really. I mean, Mike's got a lot of confidence. Last year, had a great year as a junior. He was, you know, he's my number 2 with Tucker, and you know, he worked out hard in the off season. So he came into camp feeling confident about what he could do, and he's shown it. I mean, it's impressive. He's now over 40 innings, hasn't given up an earned run. So knock on wood that it carries over through the rest of the year. Well,
we know the type of guys that have carried this baseball team. What about 1 or 2 guys that you didn't expect, and all of a sudden you looked up and maybe it's this game, maybe it's the next game, maybe it's 3 games from now. Somebody's doing something really good.
Well, when the record's where we're at right now, and there's going to be a lot of guys stepping up, but there's a few that come to mind. One is both freshmen. The first one is Anthony Vedetto. He's the starting first baseman. He's batting third. He's batting around 340 right now as a freshman in a tough league. And the other freshman, Jason Jondro, he's my third starter. Just came off a phenomenal win against Norwood, who's a great team, great hitting team in the Bay State League, and that's serious baseball. And he shut them out, got a couple of runs in, and he was dominating, no walks. And you know, you go around the team, I mean, guys like Matt Cochon's versatile. He plays second and plays left, and Josh O'Neill's plays shortstop and center field, and you know, those kind of guys. They just step up. Whatever the teammate needs, they do.
Well, earlier on our program this week, we spent some time with Mike Brennan, super record for the Silver Lake softball program. Now we're spending some time with Kenny Tocci. Let's talk about your record. Mike Brennan scoring a ton of runs, 182 runs in 16 games and giving up only 6. Why don't you see if you can top that or come close, because you've got a great record yourself.
Well, we got a good record, you know, but we're 15-2 now overall, and you know, we don't have 180 runs scored. Let me tell you that, but. We've got enough that we've won enough games that that pitching keeps us in the games, and baseball is all about pitching, defense, and timely hitting, and we seem to be getting the hits when we need them.
And that seems to work for the softball team as well. So I don't know who gets the bragging rights this spring over at Silver Lake, softball or baseball, but it's great to have that 1-2 punch. So if somebody sees Lakers, they think winning. Listen, we appreciate your time. Keep it rolling, and I know we do our show on a Thursday. We won't know how Silver Lake did against Hingham. Big matchup, but a win there, you get the championship all to yourselves.
That would be nice. You know, it's a great rivalry with Hingham, and every time we played over the last 4 or 5 years, it's been tooth and nail, so I expect nothing else.
Well, listen, appreciate your time. Keep it rolling.
Thank you.
All right, head coach Kenny Tocci joining us this week on the Video Sports Page. All right, as we continue along with our program, what we can tell you quickly is Silver Lake will be back in action this week, and As I mentioned, next Thursday, the Lakers will take on Plymouth North. That should be a good matchup. And here's a little note for you. Next year, Plymouth North joins the Patriot League and will face Silver Lake twice, like the old days when Plymouth and Silver Lake would meet in every sport when they were both part of the old Colony League. All right, quickly, when we want to talk about Silver Lake, let's congratulate the boys tennis team. They've qualified for the postseason after a victory against Pembroke on Tuesday. Speaking of high school tennis, how about the Duxbury program? 3-2 winners against Hingham on the boys' side this week. Duxbury now 14-1 in boys tennis. How about the Carver tennis program on the girls' side? They've had a great season. We interviewed their coach earlier this year. They lost a tough one in a rematch against Duxbury, 3-2. All right, let's talk about Silver Lake's lacrosse program on the boys' side. Silver Lake came up with a victory this week, 17-8 against North Quincy, scoring all sorts of goals at home in a terrific setting over at Silver Lake. And let's talk quickly, if we can, about boys track, where Plymouth South dominated Nauset. Now, this is domination, 102-14. Plymouth South over Nauset. Drew Sutherland wins in the shot put, qualifies for the state tournament. Tom Giorgio won both the high jump and the long jump to help lead Plymouth South to that lopsided victory. All right, that'll take care of this week's edition of the Video Sports Page. Congratulations to head coach Dwayne Follett and the Eagles, co-champs. Congratulations to Silver Lake and girls softball and boys baseball, champions there as well. And the list goes on, and hopefully next week on our program, we'll talk about a Plymouth North boys tennis championship. Big thank you tonight goes out to Rich Goulart. He put it all together for us. I've been your host, Carl Pratt. Health and wisdom from the Video Sports Page.